Stop being liked. Unlock the dark power of respect. Machiavelli. Stop trying to be liked. That is the first truth that most people will never accept. From the moment you were born, society began shaping you, not to be powerful, not to be wise, not even to be free, but to be liked, to fit in, to smile when you want to scream, to agree when you should walk away. You have been trained, conditioned, and programmed to believe that being liked is the same as being respected. But Machiavelli would tell you the opposite. The more you try to be liked, the weaker you become. There is something darkly liberating about this truth. Because once you stop caring about being liked, you begin to see how much of your life has been a performance. Every word you've spoken to avoid conflict, every time you've silenced your own needs to keep the peace, these are small deaths of your self-respect. You've spent years trying to be good, agreeable, humble. And what did it give you? Disappointment, betrayal, manipulation. You were not loved for your kindness, you were used for it. Machiavelli, the most feared thinker of the Renaissance, once said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." That sentence has been hated, twisted, and misunderstood for centuries. But behind those words hides something most people are too afraid to see. Respect has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with boundaries. Those who seek to be liked will sacrifice their dignity to please others. Those who seek respect will be misunderstood, judged, even hated. But they will never be controlled. So ask yourself, how many of your decisions have been shaped by the desire to be liked? How many times have you said yes when every cell of your body screamed no? How many times have you bitten your tongue because you didn't want to offend? Being liked is the ultimate prison because it makes you betray your own nature just to maintain a fragile illusion of approval. There is a hidden law of human nature. People do not respect what they can easily please. When you are too available, too forgiving, too nice, you are not seen as strong. You are seen as safe. And safety does not inspire respect. Machiavelli understood that the world is not built on fairness, but on perception. If you do not control how you are seen, others will define you in the way that serves them best. That is why the powerful learn to shape the image they project, not by chasing affection, but by commanding presence. To stop being liked is not to become cruel. It is to become sovereign. It is to step outside the circle of manipulation where everyone smiles, nods, and hides a knife behind their back. It is to understand that your value does not depend on how others react to you. You are not here to be approved. You are here to be effective. And in a world that worships superficial charm, effectiveness feels like rebellion. Think about it. What happens when you finally stop needing to be liked? Silence. The noise of other people's opinions fades. The energy you once wasted on pleasing becomes available for creation, focus, and truth. People around you change. They either rise to meet your strength or fall away, unable to manipulate you anymore. That is the dark power of respect. It doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it simply stands, and the world rearranges itself around it. But there is a paradox. The more you seek to be respected, the less you can depend on the approval of others. You will have to walk through loneliness. You will have to face moments when people misunderstand your intentions, call you arrogant, cold, distant. Machiavelli warned that leadership, authenticity, and sovereignty demand a certain cruelty, not towards others, but towards your own weakness. You must kill the part of you that needs to be accepted in order to survive. This journey will not make you popular. It will make you powerful. Because those who master the art of being respected become unpredictable, unshakable, and untouchable. They command attention without raising their voice. They create boundaries without saying a word. Their silence speaks louder than the noise of those who seek validation. And here lies the forgotten truth of Machiavelli's philosophy. Power is not about domination. It's about perception. It's not about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. When you can stand alone, when you can walk away from the need to be liked, you no longer react. You choose. Every movement becomes intentional. Every word carries weight. People begin to notice a change they cannot explain. They sense it, the quiet authority that comes from inner freedom. The world we live in today glorifies being liked. Social media feeds on approval. We measure our worth in followers, likes, and validation. But the more connected we become, the more desperate we are to be accepted. We fear being ignored more than being enslaved. And that is why Machiavelli's words feel like a wound. They reveal that the greatest form of manipulation is self-inflicted. We hand our power away every time we seek permission to exist. But imagine what happens when you reclaim that power. Imagine walking into a room and not needing to prove anything. Imagine speaking and feeling no pressure to please. Imagine losing nothing when someone dislikes you. That is not arrogance, that is peace. The kind of peace that only those who have lost everything fake can ever feel. Today you are going to learn the art of commanding respect without begging for attention. You will learn how Machiavelli's forgotten principles can transform the way you are seen and the way you see yourself. You will see how detachment creates magnetism, how silence creates authority, and how strength creates beauty. But above all, you will discover that respect is not something you earn from others. It is something you awaken within yourself. So if you've ever felt invisible, underestimated, or taken for granted, this is your awakening. If you've ever been told to be nice when you wanted to be real, this is your liberation. Because the truth is simple. You cannot be both liked and respected by everyone. The path of respect requires sacrifice, but what you gain in return is priceless. Clarity, dignity, and unshakable presence. Before we continue, I want you to comment one phrase below, a declaration to mark your decision. I choose respect over approval. Say it, write it, let it echo through your mind. And if these words already awaken something inside you, subscribe, like this video, and stay until the end. Because what you're about to hear next is not just a lesson. It is a revelation Machiavelli whispered through centuries. That true respect begins the moment you stop needing to be liked. To understand the power of respect, we must return to a time when the idea of human nature was stripped of its illusions. In the 16th century, Niccolò Machiavelli lived in a world torn by betrayal, political chaos, and shifting alliances. Florence, once the center of beauty and art, had become a battlefield of deception. Empires rose and fell not through justice or morality, but through perception and control. In this brutal landscape, Machiavelli did not write for the weak-hearted. He wrote for those willing to see humanity without its mask. He was not a monster, as history painted him. He was a mirror. He held up the truth that society hides, that people respect strength more than goodness, action more than intention, and consequence more than morality. His book, The Prince, was not a manual for cruelty. It was a survival guide for authenticity in a deceptive world. He dared to speak aloud what others whispered in secret. That power is neutral, and that weakness disguised as virtue is still weakness. At that time, the church ruled minds, monarchs ruled lands, and appearances ruled everything else. The moral codes of the era demanded purity and obedience. But beneath those codes, everyone was maneuvering, calculating, hiding their desires behind words of faith and loyalty. Machiavelli saw through it all. He realized that people did not follow the good. They followed the effective. And that, he said, is why it is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both. But Machiavelli's word feared has been misunderstood for centuries. It does not mean terror or cruelty. It means recognition of authority. It means being someone whose presence naturally commands restraint. To be feared in Machiavelli's sense is to be seen as someone who cannot be manipulated. It is to radiate such self-possession that others measure their words before speaking to you. That kind of power does not come from domination. It comes from self-mastery. Fast forward to today. We live in an age that believes it has outgrown Machiavelli. We talk about empathy, inclusivity, kindness, and all these things are good. But beneath this new moral order lies the same old truth. People still manipulate, still compete, still test the limits of others. The difference is that now weakness hides under the name of virtue. People are encouraged to be agreeable, to smile through discomfort, to suppress anger, to keep the peace even when the peace is a lie. Machiavelli would call this the new hypocrisy of the modern world, the worship of being liked at the cost of being respected. Psychologically, the human desire to be liked is ancient. It comes from our tribal origins. Thousands of years ago, rejection meant death. Belonging meant survival. The brain learned to equate approval with safety. That instinct never left us. Even today, when rejection no longer kills, it still triggers the same panic inside. That's why a single negative comment can ruin your day, why disapproval feels like danger, and why conformity feels like comfort. The need to be liked is not moral, it's biological. But biology can be transcended. Machiavelli's genius was to reveal that freedom begins when we stop obeying our primitive programming. Respect, unlike affection, is not a reflex. It is earned through discipline. A person who seeks respect must face their own fears. The fear of disapproval, of loneliness, of misunderstanding. And only by facing those fears do they rise above them. This is the natural law of strength. What you stop chasing begins to chase you. When you no longer need validation, people begin to sense something unexplainable in you. Gravity, Philosophically, this principle echoes through other traditions. The Stoics spoke of apatheia, freedom from emotional slavery. The Buddhists taught upekkha, equanimity, balance that cannot be disturbed by praise or blame. And even in ancient warrior cultures, such as the samurai of Japan, respect was earned not through sweetness but through inner control. They called it reigi, a discipline of behavior that reflected inner dignity. Machiavelli's truth, stripped of its political armor, belongs to this same universal wisdom, that to be respected one must first conquer oneself. But why was this wisdom buried, feared, and forgotten? Because the powerful have always preferred populations that seek approval. A society of people desperate to be liked is easy to manipulate. They will silence their truth, hide their strength, and trade authenticity for belonging. To keep people obedient, make them fear rejection more than injustice. That is the silent mechanism of modern control. Machiavelli saw it centuries ago in the courts of Florence. And it is still alive today, hidden beneath the glow of our screens. Look around. Every click, every post, every reaction is a silent negotiation for approval. People craft identities not for truth, but for acceptance. The like button became the new throne, and we kneel before it daily. We are still princes and pawns in a kingdom of perception. But the few who understand Machiavelli's dark wisdom know that freedom lies in reversing the equation. Stop trying to be liked and you begin to be respected. Stop explaining yourself and you begin to be listened to. Stop apologizing for existing and you begin to be seen. This is not cynicism, it is realism. Machiavelli's philosophy is not about cruelty, it is about lucidity. It teaches that the human world is governed by image, not truth, by emotion, not reason. And so, those who rise above manipulation are not the coldest, but the most awake. They do not hate humanity, they simply see it clearly. And in that clarity, they choose a different kind of strength, the power of presence. In nature, we find the same law reflected everywhere. The lion does not ask to be respected, it simply is. The mountain does not beg for recognition, it stands. Water does not argue, it carves stone through patience. Power in nature is silent, consistent, and effortless. Only the insecure make noise. Machiavelli's lesson, seen through the mirror of nature, becomes spiritual. True strength is invisible, because it does not need to prove itself. So when you hear his name, Machiavelli, do not think of tyranny. Think of awareness. Think of the man who dared to write what everyone knew but feared to admit. He showed that human beings are driven by self-interest, that morality is often a costume, and that those who depend on the affection of others will always be controlled by them. To seek respect instead is not to reject love. It is to demand that love meet you on equal ground. In this world, you cannot be both universally liked and deeply respected. One requires conformity, the other requires integrity. The choice is yours. But history, psychology, and nature all whisper the same truth. The ones who stop chasing approval shape their own destiny. Now that you understand where this wisdom comes from, its roots in history, its echo in philosophy, its reflection in nature, it is time to enter the real battlefield, your own mind, because the struggle for respect is not fought in the world, it is fought within you. It is not about others. It is about what you tolerate, what you fear, and what you allow. The addiction to being liked is not a social issue, it is a spiritual disease. It drains your power in silence, teaching you to doubt yourself before anyone else does. To break free, you must first see the invisible chains, the subtle ways you betray yourself for approval, the unspoken contracts you sign every day when you choose comfort over authenticity. Machiavelli's wisdom is not for the faint-hearted. It is for those ready to awaken from the illusion of belonging. Because the truth is simple. The world does not reward those who blend in. It rewards those who stand out without asking for permission. Respect is not given. It is claimed through action, clarity, and silence. Let us begin. Principle 1. The weakness of wanting to be liked. The first step toward commanding respect is to recognize the weakness hidden inside the desire to be liked. Most people confuse being liked with being accepted. They think that approval equals safety. But in reality, approval is the currency of manipulation. The more you want it, the cheaper you become. When you are desperate to be liked, people feel it. They sense your hunger for validation, and they use it against you. The paradox is that the more you chase affection, the less of it you receive. People do not respect what is desperate. They respect what is selective. Machiavelli observed that those who seek love from the crowd end up slaves to it. He wrote that a prince must avoid being hated, but he must never depend on being loved. Why? Because love is unstable. It changes with mood, with fortune, with rumor. But respect endures because it is built on perception, not emotion. The moment you stop needing to be liked, you stop being predictable. And unpredictability is the foundation of power. When others cannot read your motives, they cannot control you. To free yourself from this weakness, you must first become aware of your patterns. Notice how often you agree when you disagree. Notice how you soften your truth to protect someone's comfort. Notice how you shrink when you should stand tall. Every time you do this, you send a signal to the world. My peace depends on your approval, and the world will respond accordingly. The solution is not arrogance, it is detachment. To stop needing to be liked is not to become cold. It is to become whole. It means you no longer depend on external warmth to feel alive. You start creating your own inner fire. That is what Machiavelli meant by strength. Principle 2. Control the perception, not the emotion. One of Machiavelli's most profound lessons is that perception rules reality. People don't see you as you are. They see you as they need to. You cannot control what they feel, but you can shape what they perceive. The mistake of the people pleaser is trying to manage emotions. The strategy of the powerful is to master appearances. In The Prince, Machiavelli explained that a ruler must learn how not to be good, meaning that he must understand when morality serves him and when it enslaves him. To be good all the time is to be predictable, and predictability invites exploitation. The one who is always kind, always forgiving, always available, will always be taken for granted. You don't need to manipulate others. You only need to manage the image you project. Speak less than necessary. Do not over-explain your intentions. Do not rush to prove your innocence. The moment you start justifying yourself, you lower your position. People respect calm authority, not emotional defense. When you speak, let your words be precise, measured, and rare. Silence, used wisely, creates tension. And tension, when sustained, creates respect. Psychologically, this is how boundaries are formed. Not through aggression, but through absence. When others cannot easily access your energy, your words gain value. People begin to weigh your attention like gold. That is the art of perception control. Machiavelli would say, appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, upright, but remain the master of your own nature. In other words, never let your image control you. You control your image. Principle 3. The law of scarcity and distance respect thrives on distance. Familiarity breeds comfort, and comfort breeds disrespect. The person who is always available becomes invisible. The person who withdraws strategically becomes magnetic. Machiavelli understood this law deeply. Men are quicker to offend those they love than those they fear. Why? Because love breeds familiarity, and familiarity dissolves boundaries. In human psychology, we respect what we cannot easily reach. When you create a healthy distance, whether emotional, physical, or social, you give others a reason to measure their behavior around you. The modern world teaches the opposite, to be constantly accessible, constantly visible, constantly connected. But connection without mystery destroys authority. To apply this law, you must learn to step back. Respond later, not instantly. Speak when silence has built anticipation. Appear in moments of wait, not routine. People who pace their presence project power without saying a word. Think of great leaders, teachers, or creators. They are not everywhere, and that is why we wait for them. In your personal life, do the same. Withdraw not as punishment, but as discipline. Machiavelli would remind you, distance is not rejection, it is design. Principle 4. The power of controlled emotion. To be respected, you must learn to remain emotionally composed under pressure. The one who reacts is the one who loses control. Machiavelli knew that fear and anger were tools, but only for those who could wield them deliberately. A prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves, he said. But what he meant was balance. To be a fox is to remain perceptive. To be a lion is to remain firm. Both require emotional discipline. In the modern world, this is the art of composure. When you show anger impulsively, you reveal weakness. But when you show calm when others expect rage, you shift the power dynamic. Respect flows naturally toward those who remain unshaken. People will test you intentionally or unconsciously to measure your emotional strength. Your task is not to react but to observe. To remain still when others lose control is to dominate without effort. This does not mean suppressing emotion. It means transmuting it. Use your emotion as energy, not as expression. Channel frustration into focus, pain into purpose, and fear into clarity. Machiavelli would say that passion, when mastered, becomes strategy. Principle 5. Speak with weight or not at all words are the currency of influence. The more you spend, the less valuable they become. Those who constantly speak to be liked end up ignored. Those who speak rarely but with purpose create silence before and after their words. That silence is respect. Machiavelli knew that rhetoric was a weapon. He studied how rulers moved hearts with language, but he also saw how excessive words destroyed credibility. When you talk too much, you reveal too much, your fears, your limits, your emotions. The powerful reveal less. They know that mystery is more persuasive than explanation. In your daily life, this means choosing precision over abundance. Before you speak, ask, does this serve my purpose or my insecurity? If it serves insecurity, stay silent. If it serves clarity, speak once. Watch how people lean in when you talk less. In conversation, pause often. Let silence make others uncomfortable. It's a test. Whoever breaks the silence first shows who depends on the other's validation. Machiavelli believed that authority begins in speech, not in tone but in restraint. Speak to influence, not to impress. Those who speak to impress are liked. Those who speak to influence are respected. Now pause for a moment. Ask yourself this question and comment it below if it resonates. Do I speak to be understood or to be liked? Because that single question will reveal whether you live as your own master or as a servant of perception. When you begin to justify your choices, you hand your power away. Machiavelli understood that the need to explain is born from insecurity. Those who are sure of themselves do not defend their decisions. They embody them. Every explanation you give weakens your image because it reveals that you need to be understood. But the powerful do not crave understanding. They command clarity through presence, not persuasion. Most people spend their lives trying to make others see their heart, understand their reasons, get their intentions. Yet in reality, perception is the only truth that governs human relations. You are not respected for what you mean. You are respected for what you show. When you defend yourself, you confirm that you are guilty of doubt. When you remain still, others begin to question their own judgment. Silence makes them uncertain. Explanations make you predictable. Machiavelli would tell you this: it is not necessary to explain when results speak for themselves. Every time you defend yourself, you invite others to argue with your worth. Stop doing that. Let your outcomes, your calmness, your silence, and your consistency defend you instead. In practical terms, this means one thing: learn to sit in discomfort. Learn to let people misinterpret you without panic. Let them gossip, let them project, let them assume. You will notice that their voices grow smaller with time, while your quiet strength grows heavier. The truth always rises, but not for those who chase it. Principle 7. The mask of virtue. Machiavelli never told people to be evil. He told them to understand that morality in society is a mask. People claim to value honesty, yet punish it when it threatens their comfort. They praise kindness, but exploit it when it benefits them. He saw this hypocrisy not as corruption, but as reality. Therefore, he advised rulers to appear virtuous, but to remain internally free. This is not deceit, it is wisdom. The world operates on appearances. Those who master the surface control the depths. Machiavelli advised, a prince must appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and upright, but must also be able to act against these when necessary. He did not mean to abandon morality. He meant to liberate you from the illusion that morality protects you. In modern life, this translates into strategic authenticity. Be kind but not naive. Be generous but not accessible to all. Be honest but never transparent. Do not wear your heart on your sleeve because people will measure where to pierce it. Appear calm, wise, and grounded, but within, keep the sharpness of awareness. The mask of virtue is not hypocrisy, it is self-preservation. A warrior wears armor not because he is evil, but because the world is dangerous. If you remove your armor in the name of purity, you are not spiritual, you are foolish. Machiavelli teaches us that integrity is not about exposure, it is about control. You decide when to reveal, when to conceal, and when to remain unreadable. That unreadability is not deceit, it is your protection. Principle 8. The price of compassion. To be liked, people often try to be endlessly compassionate. They believe compassion equals goodness and goodness equals safety. But in reality, uncontrolled compassion is emotional suicide. Machiavelli observed that leaders who try to please everyone end up destroying both their people and themselves. Compassion without boundaries becomes exploitation. He wrote, "A prince must be slow to believe and slow to act, nor should he show fear. He should proceed in a temperate manner with prudence and humanity, but with firmness. This means compassion should be guided by wisdom, not emotion. True compassion is not about feeling sorry. It's about empowering others to face the truth. When you say yes to everyone, you say no to your own peace. When you rescue people from their lessons, you steal their growth. When you forgive too quickly, you teach them that betrayal has no cost. And when you confuse softness with virtue, you invite disrespect disguised as intimacy. There is a deeper law. Compassion is divine only when it is selective. It requires discernment. Learn to separate those who need your help from those who need your boundaries. Machiavelli would say that mercy without control becomes cruelty to yourself. Therefore, the dark power of respect demands that you practice intelligent compassion. Help, but withdraw when help becomes dependence. Listen, but don't absorb. Love, but stay rooted in yourself. People respect those who protect their energy. They pity those who scatter it. Principle 9. Learn the art of absence. Absence is not emptiness, it is strategy. Machiavelli observed that constant presence weakens influence. He noted that rulers who were always visible became vulnerable, while those who withdrew periodically were feared and desired. In your personal life, the same truth applies. Absence amplifies value. When you step back from people, projects, or conversations, you create reflection. You give others time to realize your weight. Absence is not rejection. It is the echo of significance. In psychological terms, this law activates scarcity. The human brain values what is limited. When your energy, attention, or presence becomes rare, people instinctively perceive it as more valuable. This is why mystique surrounds those who don't overexpose themselves. Machiavelli would tell you, withdraw at your peak. Return when you are needed, not when you are bored. Your disappearance should always serve a purpose, to reset perception. When you vanish strategically, people replay your last words, rethink their actions, and reconsider your worth. This law applies even to love. In relationships, constant availability kills attraction. In leadership, overexposure kills authority. In creativity, endless production kills mystery. Respect grows in the spaces between appearances. So learn the art of stepping away, not in anger, but in mastery. Let silence do your talking. Let absence do your reminding. Because those who can walk away are those who command the room, even when they are not in it. Principle 10. The power of detachment. The highest form of power is detachment. Machiavelli understood that control over others begins with control over oneself. When you are detached, you no longer react, you decide. You no longer seek validation, you project certainty. Detachment is not coldness, it is the freedom from emotional slavery. He observed that fortune, the unpredictable force that shapes life, favors the prepared mind. Fortune, he wrote, is like a woman. She favors the bold, the disciplined, the decisive. What he meant was that the detached person moves through chaos with grace. They are not swayed by approval or rejection. They do not panic when the world shifts because their stability comes from within. In a psychological sense, detachment means observing without absorbing. When someone insults you, you analyze their motive instead of reacting to their words. When life tests you, you adapt without self-pity. When others withdraw love, you remain whole. That is the essence of sovereignty. To practice detachment, start with small acts. Delay your reaction when something triggers you. Observe your emotions before expressing them. Walk away from conversations that drain your clarity. Choose silence over explanation, peace over control, solitude over noise. Each small act strengthens your inner authority. Detachment is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of it. The one who can love deeply without depending, act boldly without attachment to results, and stand alone without loneliness, that one is untouchable. Machiavelli would have called this the invisible throne, the place where no one can reach you because your power comes from self-command. At this point, if you have truly listened, you might feel something shifting inside you. A quiet realization that most of your exhaustion comes not from work or struggle, but from trying to please everyone. The mind constantly bends to avoid judgment, while the soul longs for peace. But peace will never come from approval. Peace comes from sovereignty. Machiavelli's teachings are not about darkness for the sake of evil. They are about understanding the shadows that rule human behavior. When you see these shadows clearly, they lose power over you. The person who knows human nature as it is, not as it should be, walks with an advantage. They cannot be easily deceived. So remember these 10 truths, each one a weapon, each one a mirror. Stop trying to be liked. Control perception, not emotion. Maintain distance. Master your reactions. Speak with weight. Never explain. Wear the mask of virtue wisely. Be compassionate with discernment. Withdraw to increase your value. Detach from everything that controls you. When you practice these principles, something rare happens. You no longer seek respect. You become it. People feel it before you speak. They measure their words, their tone, their behavior around you without knowing why. That is the silent dominance Machiavelli described. Not tyranny, but equilibrium. To command respect is not to dominate others. It is to master the self so completely that domination becomes unnecessary. Up until now, you've learned how respect is built through restraint, distance, and self-command. But there is another dimension, one that most never dare to face. It is the realm of paradoxes, where light and darkness fuse, where morality becomes strategy, and where human nature reveals its double face. Machiavelli lived in this realm. He understood that the essence of influence is not kindness or cruelty. It is balance. Too much light blinds. Too much shadow corrupts. To command respect, you must master both. You must know how to stand in silence, yet radiate presence. You must understand fear without being ruled by it. And you must learn the hidden art of becoming both loved and feared, not through manipulation, but through psychological gravity. What follows are not rules. They are mirrors reflecting how the world truly works. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. These are Machiavelli's dark paradoxes of respect, the secrets that separate those who are noticed from those who are remembered. Paradox 1. Fear is not the enemy. It is the frame of respect. Machiavelli's most controversial statement. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both, is not a hymn to cruelty. It is an observation of how humans perceive authority. Fear, in its purest form, is not terror. It is awareness of consequence. When people know that crossing your boundaries carries weight, they naturally move with caution. That caution is not hatred, it is recognition. Modern culture demonizes fear. We are told that to be feared is to be oppressive. But think of nature. Even the gentlest creature respects the lion's silence. The forest itself grows quiet when the predator walks. Not because it loves the lion, but because it acknowledges his certainty. That is the kind of fear Machiavelli meant. A quiet understanding that your words have weight, your patience has limits, your kindness has structure. You can inspire that kind of respect without raising your voice. You do it by aligning your actions with your boundaries. When you say you'll walk away, walk. When you promise consequences, deliver them. When you declare your standards, live by them. Over time, people stop testing you. They begin to sense your line, even in silence. Fear then becomes invisible, a natural perimeter of authority. To Machiavelli, love without fear dissolves into entitlement. But fear framed by fairness evolves into admiration. Those who respect you may still love you, but it will be a love that carries weight. Paradox 2. Kindness without strength is an invitation to abuse. The gentle heart that refuses to set limits is not noble, it is naive. Machiavelli observed that the most virtuous leaders often lost their kingdoms to men of sharper will, because when goodness lacks discipline, it breeds chaos. In psychology, this is called pathological agreeableness, a compulsive need to please that stems from fear of conflict. But conflict avoided becomes conflict multiplied. To Machiavelli, kindness must be strategic. He wrote that mercy, when misplaced, becomes cruelty because it allows harm to spread. Translated into modern life, this means never reward behavior that disrespects you. Do not confuse tolerance with wisdom. Forgiveness is powerful, but only when it serves growth, not comfort. Think of the physician who cuts to heal. The act seems cruel, but it saves the patient. Likewise, your firmness may hurt feelings, but it protects respect. Those who set boundaries are accused of coldness only by those who benefited from their lack of them. Real kindness uplifts, not enables. When you begin to say no with calmness, you will notice something strange. People start to listen more closely to your yes. Your compassion gains value because it is no longer cheap. And that is when kindness turns into power. Paradox. 3. Mystery is the language of influence. Machiavelli taught that unpredictability is essential for maintaining authority. He warned rulers never to reveal the full pattern of their thoughts. The moment people believe they can read you, they stop respecting you. They start calculating you. Human psychology is addicted to mystery. What is hidden draws attention. What is always visible fades into background noise. This is why silence feels heavier than speech. Why a calm gaze can dominate a conversation without words. The unknown stimulates imagination, and imagination magnifies power. In the Renaissance courts, Machiavelli saw this phenomenon daily. The most respected figures were not those who shouted the loudest, They were the ones whose motives remained veiled. They said little, moved rarely, but when they acted, it shifted the room. The aura they carried came from restraint. In your life, cultivate that aura. You do not owe transparency to everyone. Explain less. Reveal only what serves your purpose. Let curiosity work for you. When people wonder what you think, you already control the rhythm of interaction. Mystery is not manipulation. It is magnetism. It gives space for others to project meaning onto you, and most of the time, their projection flatters you. Those who master mystery control perception without a word. Paradox. 4. The power of controlled visibility. Visibility is a double-edged sword. Machiavelli noted that rulers fall not when they are hated, but when they become too familiar. Familiarity erodes majesty. To maintain respect, one must appear accessible enough to be known, but distant enough to remain idealized. In modern terms, show your presence strategically. If you are everywhere, you become noise. If you vanish completely, you become myth. But myths fade without reinforcement. The balance lies in rhythm. Appear, then withdraw. Speak, then fall silent. Give, then pause. Your pattern should feel deliberate. Let people anticipate you, not expect you. Psychologically, this creates tension, a gentle uncertainty that sustains attention. Influence dies when predictability replaces anticipation. The ones who know when to step back hold the stage even after they leave it. That is why the greatest leaders, artists, and thinkers control their appearances like seasons. They arrive with purpose, not routine. When you manage visibility, you manage memory. People remember the moments when you were most present, not the hours when you lingered. Machiavelli would say, rule your image like a shadow, always visible, never graspable. Paradox 5. To command loyalty. You must awaken. Self-interest. Machiavelli's insight into loyalty was brutally honest. People are loyal as long as it serves them. He did not see this as evil, only as human. He wrote, men love at their own convenience, but fear at the convenience of the prince. In other words, people's devotion follows their benefit. Understanding this does not make you cynical. It makes you prepared. In leadership, friendship, or love, appealing only to ideals is fragile. Appeal also to what people gain from respecting you. Give them reason, not just emotion. When people see that loyalty to you aligns with their own growth, it becomes stable. You do not buy loyalty, you anchor it in reciprocity. Machiavelli advised rulers to reward loyalty visibly so others would see its advantage. Likewise in your life, appreciate those who respect your boundaries, who protect your name, who stand when others doubt. Make your gratitude known, but not excessive. People value what they earn, not what they are given freely. And never forget, when loyalty fades, do not beg for it. Withdraw your presence. Absence teaches faster than arguments. Those who take you for granted must feel the vacuum you leave behind. That vacuum is your silent teacher. Paradox. 6. The quiet use of fear to strengthen trust. It sounds contradictory. Yet Machiavelli observed that the most trusted leaders were those whose followers also feared disappointing them. Not because they were tyrants, but because their standards were clear. Fear used wisely creates structure. It gives people a sense of gravity around you, a sense that your expectations are sacred. In a team, a family, or a community, when everyone knows what you tolerate and what you don't, peace prevails. But when rules blur, chaos enters. Machiavelli compared the just ruler to the sculptor. The firmness of his chisel defines the beauty of the statue. Without firmness, the marble remains formless. So do not be afraid to make your disapproval visible. A single disappointed silence can reshape behavior more than 100 explanations. People crave certainty, even in discipline. When they know your limits, they relax within them. That relaxation becomes trust, and trust built on consistency becomes admiration. In this sense, fear and trust are not enemies, they are siblings. The line between them is integrity. Use fear not to dominate but to guide. Let it signal your standards, not your superiority. Paradox 7. Appear strong, even when you are healing. Machiavelli warned that weakness once perceived attracts opportunists. Human nature, he said, is drawn to exploit cracks in authority. This doesn't mean you must be emotionless. It means you must be selective about where you reveal your wounds. In his time, rulers who showed despair lost allies within days. Confidence, even simulated, kept order intact until true recovery arrived. This principle still holds today. When life wounds you, move in silence. Heal privately. Share your vulnerability only with those who have earned it. Strength is not pretending you never break. It is protecting your space while you rebuild. When the world sees only your composure, it cannot target your weakness. Behind closed doors, you may tremble. In public, remain aligned. People respect those who can suffer with dignity. They may not understand your silence, but they will feel its depth. Machiavelli would call this the discipline of image. Never let temporary pain rewrite your permanent power. Paradox. 8. Power is silent order. Amidst noise to Machiavelli, chaos was the natural state of human affairs. He believed that the strong do not eliminate chaos, they organize it. Respect emerges not from loud control, but from quiet structure. Observe any situation. The one who remains calm while others panic becomes the anchor. This is not about dominance. It's about regulation. People unconsciously follow the calmest energy in the room. That is why composure is magnetic. It signals competence in a world addicted to drama. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors those who act, not react. He compared leadership to navigation. When storms arise, the captain who shouts does not inspire. The one who adjusts sails in silence does. Likewise, in daily life, stop narrating your chaos. Solve, don't broadcast. Let your actions create order quietly. Eventually, people will associate your presence with clarity, your silence with stability. That association becomes reverence. When you master quiet order, you no longer chase respect. It circulates around you, like gravity. Paradox 9. Reputation is a fortress. Build it before you need it. Machiavelli insisted that reputation is more valuable than force. Armies fade, wealth fluctuates, but reputation endures. It is the invisible kingdom you carry everywhere. He wrote, "A prince must build his foundations on what is his own, his virtue and his reputation. Your reputation is not what you post. It is what people whisper when you leave the room. It is crafted slowly by consistency between word and deed. When your behavior aligns with your principles, people begin to predict you, not in weakness but in reliability. They know what to expect, and that expectation becomes respect. The secret is to build reputation before crisis arrives. When storms hit, your past integrity becomes your defense. Those who ignored consistency scramble for validation. Those who build steadily are protected by credibility. Guard your reputation fiercely. Never argue to defend it. Live in a way that makes lies dissolve. And remember, reputation grows not through perfection, but through recovery. The way you rise after mistakes defines how people see you more than the mistakes themselves. Machiavelli observed that the world is a hall of mirrors. Every opinion, every rumor, every reaction becomes a reflection that can build or destroy a man. He warned that those who do not shape their own reflection will be shaped by others. In today's language, this means you must decide who you are before the world decides for you. When you fail to define your identity, people project theirs onto you. They will interpret your silence as weakness, your distance as arrogance, your calm as guilt. So be deliberate, not theatrical, deliberate. Choose the symbols that represent you. Your way of speaking, the rhythm of your words, your posture, your pace, all of it tells the world what kind of person stands before them. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler should choose to seem all mercy, faith, integrity, humanity, and religion, not because deception is noble, but because perception is power. Your reflection must be coherent. If you wish to be respected, every gesture must whisper stability. People will still misunderstand you, but they will do so upward, not downward. They will guess your motives as greater than they are, not smaller. That is the real alchemy of perception, turning silence into mystery instead of doubt. You control that by mastering your mirror. Paradox 11. Reward publicly, punish silently. One of Machiavelli's subtler lessons concerns the management of reward and discipline. He noted that rulers who scold in public appear insecure, while those who praise in public and correct in private command admiration. Because public humiliation breeds resentment, but private correction breeds reflection. In modern life, this principle applies everywhere, from leadership to friendship. If someone wrongs you, resist the instinct to expose them. To do so may satisfy your ego, but it drains your dignity. A quiet withdrawal, a firm conversation behind closed doors, a silent change of behavior. These actions echo louder than public revenge. Conversely, when someone honors you with loyalty, appreciation, or excellence, praise them openly. Let others witness your gratitude. You strengthen loyalty not by flattery but by recognition. People crave acknowledgement more than reward. Machiavelli saw that public praise creates an atmosphere of respect. It turns gratitude into a mirror that multiplies itself. The secret is symmetry. Praise where all can see, discipline where no one must. Those who live by this principle radiate calm authority. Their power feels graceful, not oppressive. Paradox 12. Never compete for attention. Command it by presence. Competition for attention is the sport of the insecure. Machiavelli understood that attention pursued becomes humiliation, but attention magnetized becomes rule. He saw that true leaders rarely fight to be seen. They arrange the scene so that sight finds them. To command attention, embody contrast. When others shout, you lower your voice. When they rush, you pause. When they imitate, you innovate quietly. Contrast activates curiosity, and curiosity sustains influence. Psychologically, people notice what breaks rhythm. That is why silence in a loud world is deafening. When everyone tries to please, the one who abstains from begging becomes a mystery. This is how stillness becomes strategy. Machiavelli would have called it royal composure. Even surrounded by chaos, the prince remains motionless until action matters. Then, one precise gesture, one decision, one sentence, shifts the entire narrative. To practice this, discipline your gestures. Before entering a conversation, slow your breath. Before answering, measure your tone. Before moving, observe the field. You will notice that people begin to adjust to your tempo. And when the world adapts to your rhythm, respect follows naturally. Paradox 13. To influence the mind, speak to desire. Not logic. Machiavelli's writings reveal a truth that every manipulator understands instinctively, but few wise people accept. Reason rarely moves people. Desire does. He saw that the human mind justifies with logic what the heart has already chosen through emotion. Therefore, to influence, you must speak to desire, not to ego, but to aspiration. In politics, this meant promising stability or greatness. In daily life, it means framing truth in the language of value. When you tell someone, do this because it's right, they resist. When you show them, do this because it elevates you, they listen. Desire is the bridge between understanding and action. The Machiavellian communicator does not lie. He translates truth into terms the listener can feel. That is how respect becomes persuasion. People respect those who make them see themselves in a higher light. So whenever you wish to guide, begin with empathy, end with clarity. Understand what the other seeks, then align it with what you need. This creates harmony without manipulation, a dance of intentions instead of a war of wills. Paradox 14. Disappear before they expect you. To timing is everything. Machiavelli emphasized that knowing when to stop is as powerful as knowing when to begin. He wrote that fortune smiles on those who retreat before exhaustion dulls their brilliance. The same rule governs respect. Leave while your value still glows. When you overstay, even admiration decays into habit. The mind adjusts quickly. Wonder fades with repetition. Therefore, always exit a conversation, a project, a moment slightly earlier than expected. Leave traces, not saturation. In relationships, this means stepping back before your presence becomes taken for granted. In creativity, it means closing the book while inspiration still breathes. In leadership, it means ending success with momentum, not decline. Absence, when timed perfectly, transforms memory into myth. People remember the one who left while the echo was still bright. Machiavelli's princes withdrew from banquets early not because they were arrogant, but because they understood rhythm. Power flows through rhythm. Approach, impact, retreat, silence. When you vanish gracefully, you teach the world to wonder when you'll return. And that wondering is power. Paradox 15. The dual faces of respect. Admiration and caution. Machiavelli's last paradox about respect concerns duality. To be respected, you must evoke both admiration and caution. Only admiration breeds attachment. Only caution breeds restraint. Combined, they create equilibrium. Admiration makes people want to follow you. Caution makes them watch their step. If you lose admiration, they stop listening. If you lose caution, they start taking liberties. The balance comes from controlled vulnerability. Show enough humanity to connect, but maintain enough distance to remain unpredictable. Reveal flaws that make you relatable, but never reveal weaknesses that make you replaceable. Machiavelli compared the ideal leader to the sun, generous with light, unreachable by touch. Too close and people burn. Too far and they forget. The art lies in temperature. In practice, this means be kind without apology, confident without arrogance, available without dependence. Laugh, but rarely at yourself. Listen, but do not gossip. Smile, but do not flatter. This controlled warmth creates what psychologists now call authoritative charisma, a blend of empathy and firmness that awakens both affection and respect. When you master this duality, you become magnetic. People feel safe around you, yet alert. They trust you, yet never test you. That is the invisible equilibrium Machiavelli saw in nature, the lion and the fox, the storm and the stillness united in one presence. The bridge toward application by now. If you followed these paradoxes, you feel the shift. A subtle detachment has begun inside you, a quiet authority that asks for nothing yet changes everything. But knowledge unpracticed becomes vanity. Machiavelli never wanted philosophers lost in theory. He wanted practitioners of power, craftsmen of perception. The next step is embodiment, the translation of insight into behavior, the alignment between what you know and what you radiate. This is where philosophy becomes transformation. As you move into the application part 5, remember, none of these principles demand cruelty. They demand consciousness. Your goal is not domination. It is presence. To move in such a way that people sense your center before you speak. To create a quiet gravity around you that makes the noise of others irrelevant. Comment below the phrase that marks your initiation into this next level. I move in silence, and respect follows. Respect is not emotion. It is mathematics, an invisible equation balancing energy, scarcity, and consequence. Every interaction adds or subtracts from that balance. Machiavelli sensed this centuries before psychology named it. He understood that humans calculate unconsciously how much power you radiate versus how much you need. When your need exceeds your radiance, respect collapses. When your radiance exceeds your need, authority is born. That is why desperation repels. It inverts the equation. The one who begs to be respected cannot be respected. The one who simply is, unhurried, self-contained, forces others to calculate upward. Machiavelli's entire philosophy could be reduced to this equilibrium. Never let your energy depend on approval. The moment you need response to feel whole, you hand your center away. He saw that rulers, lovers, artists, and thinkers all fell not because they lacked talent or virtue, but because they began performing for applause. The lesson is timeless. Do not advertise your need. Let your energy be circular, generated from within, recycled through stillness, returned to the world in measured doses. Those who master this internal economy seem to carry infinite resources. People call it charisma, but it is simply energy unleaked. The energy of stillness is not the absence of movement, it is movement condensed. Machiavelli noticed that the most powerful figures rarely rushed. Their very slowness altered the tempo of rooms. When they walked, others adjusted their rhythm. When they spoke, others leaned forward. Modern science would call this regulation. A calm nervous system entrains chaotic ones. A slow heartbeat calms a crowd. Machiavelli intuited these long before neuroscience. The ruler's stillness creates gravity. To apply this, practice what might be called composed delay. When you receive provocation, delay your reaction by a single breath. When someone asks for immediate response, pause to think. When insult arrives, blink once before replying, or do not reply at all. Each pause deepens your field. Each silence widens the space around you. People will sense it before they understand it. They will feel steadied, unsettled, or fascinated. That mixture, safety and mystery, is the texture of respect, power and emotional neutrality. Machiavelli taught that the ruler must learn how not to be good when the situation demands it. Psychologically, this translates to neutrality. Do not label events as blessings or curses too quickly. What seems betrayal today may reveal freedom tomorrow. Neutrality is the ability to hold contradiction without collapse. It is what separates emotional maturity from fragility. To the fragile, every disagreement feels like threat. To the mature, every threat is information. Practice neutrality through observation. When conflict arises, become the historian of the moment. Record details mentally: tone, pattern, cause. The instant you step into observer mode, the emotion loses its claws. You can act with precision instead of panic. Machiavelli would call this the discipline of vision, seeing not with the heart alone, but with the whole mind. Those who see clearly act cleanly. On the weight of words, every syllable you utter is a seed. It may sprout immediately or lie dormant for years, but it always takes root somewhere. Machiavelli admired those who understood the delayed power of language. He wrote that, "A prince should never promise what he cannot deliver, nor threaten what he will not perform. To speak idly is to cheapen yourself. In modern life, this means promising only what you intend to fulfill and criticizing only what you intend to correct." Before each conversation, imagine your words carved into stone. Would you still speak them? If not, stay silent. Over time, this restraint transforms your speech into an event. People will wait for your opinion. They will quote your phrases, not because you sought influence, but because you rationed it. Language is currency. Inflation destroys respect. The discipline of detachment is often mistaken for indifference, but Machiavelli understood it as engagement without entanglement. The detached person observes emotion without drowning in it. Detachment gives birth to perspective. Perspective gives birth to control. Control gives birth to respect. Begin practicing by reducing over-identification. When someone praises you, hear gratitude, not validation. When someone criticizes you, hear feedback, not verdict. When events shift against you, remember, the board changes, but the player remains. Machiavelli survived exile, torture, and disgrace because his mind remained his fortress. He could lose position, but not presence. The detached mind cannot be owned. That is why the world ultimately bows to it. The law of return, one of Machiavelli's quiet insights. What you project returns amplified. If you broadcast anxiety, people mirror it back with resistance. If you radiate calm, they relax and open. The environment obeys your inner tone. This is not mystical, it's mechanical. Human nervous systems synchronize through micro-expressions, breath, and pace. The ruler who panics multiplies panic. The leader who steadies multiplies stability. Therefore, responsibility begins internally. Before trying to manage others, manage your state. Adjust posture, breathing, attention. Respect begins as self-respect expressed through physiology. Machiavelli's letters reveal a man who meditated before meditation had a name, walking alone among olive trees, reflecting, regulating. He called it clearing the soul. The calm he built there became strategy later. Your modern equivalent may be a quiet morning ritual, a journal or breathwork, anything that recenters your axis. Because if your center wobbles, your kingdom, whatever form it takes, will too. The geometry of distance is not emptiness. It is design. Machiavelli observed that physical space creates psychological weight. The prince who stands slightly elevated during speeches is not arrogant, he is using geometry. In everyday life, you can apply this with subtlety. Maintain posture that opens space rather than collapses it. When seated, angle slightly away rather than directly facing. It signals sovereignty, not submission. When standing, occupy your ground without shrinking. Distance also applies to time. Do not rush replies. The pause between stimulus and response is the throne of power. The longer you can hold silence without discomfort, the stronger your presence feels. In relationships, distance protects affection. In leadership, it preserves authority. In art, it preserves mystique. Distance, properly calibrated, turns familiarity into fascination. On the value of selectivity, Machiavelli warned rulers to choose allies and confidants with extreme care. He who builds his foundation upon the people, he wrote, builds upon shifting sand. The same applies to personal life. Build your circle upon principles, not popularity. Selective association is the architecture of respect. You become the average of what you tolerate. Spend time among the petty, and you will defend pettiness. Spend time among the disciplined, and your silence becomes sharper. To practice selectivity, ask a simple question before giving access. Does this person multiply my focus or divide it? Choose multipliers. People who sharpen you by example, not by critique. People who challenge your thought, not your peace. This is not elitism, it is energy management. Machiavelli would remind you that even kings were ruined by foolish company. Protect your proximity like treasure. Emotional gravity. There is a phenomenon seldom discussed, emotional gravity. It is the field created by your consistency. Those who feel secure in your presence begin to orbit it. Their nervous systems recognize coherence and surrender. Machiavelli saw this in the city of Florence. Crowds instinctively followed the man who seemed least shaken by chaos. His calmness created mass. Mass created momentum. Momentum became influence. To build emotional gravity, you must sacrifice the luxury of reaction. You cannot afford dramatics. Each outburst evaporates a piece of your field. Your steadiness must outlast provocation. This doesn't mean being expressionless, it means expressing intentionally. Anger, when rare and justified, becomes sacred. Joy, when spontaneous but grounded, becomes contagious. Every emotion delivered from awareness increases your gravitational pull. People begin to align with your mood before you speak. That is leadership without command. Invisible hierarchies. Machiavelli wrote that power always creates hierarchy, even in systems that claim equality. Humans arrange themselves instinctively around confidence, not titles. You can watch this in any room. Within minutes, the unspoken hierarchy appears. The highest position belongs to whoever needs the least validation. The second belongs to whoever serves the most without servitude. The lowest belongs to whoever craves approval. Recognize these invisible hierarchies. Do not compete inside them. Simply withdraw from the game. When you stop playing, the hierarchy reorganizes around you. Others will adjust subconsciously, deferring to your composure. This is why Machiavelli's true students rarely proclaim power. They emanate it. Hierarchy finds them automatically. The mirror of adversity. Adversity is the furnace of respect. Every loss refines or diminishes your aura depending on how you face it. Machiavelli noted that princes who blamed fortune for misfortune lost credibility, while those who acted as if destiny still obeyed them regained it. When defeat arrives, do not explain it. Continue your rhythm. The world interprets persistence as strength and excuses as decay. Each challenge, met quietly, deepens the impression of depth. He advised, never let them see the end of your resources. Even when exhausted, move as if reservoir remains. The illusion of continuity becomes the reality of command. Your reaction to adversity writes your legend. Respond with grace and failure transforms into myth. Respond with panic and success turns to dust. Restraint as seduction. Machiavelli understood that the strongest seduction is not abundance. It is suggestion. In politics, in art, in love, the principle remains. Reveal enough to awaken curiosity, conceal enough to sustain it. This restraint creates desire in others to uncover you. They invest attention, imagination, projection, all forms of energy that feed your influence. Modern culture worships exposure, but exposure kills fascination. The person who reveals every emotion, every plan, every doubt becomes entertainment, not enigma. Restraint demands discipline. Hold something back, a story, an opinion, a smile. When you release it later, its value multiplies. This principle also governs success. Announce less, achieve more. Let results appear like weather, unexpected yet undeniable. People respect storms that arrive without forecast. Calibrated empathy to rule hearts. Machiavelli wrote, one must know well the nature of peoples. That knowledge is empathy, but strategic empathy, not absorption. Calibrated empathy means feeling enough to understand, but not enough to drown. Listen deeply, but return to your own frequency afterward. In practice, after every emotional conversation, breathe 3 slow breaths before speaking again. This simple ritual separates their energy from yours. It resets the channel. Empathy unguarded becomes fatigue. Empathy refined becomes insight. Those who master it read emotion like weather. They adjust without absorbing rain. This balanced sensitivity allows you to predict behavior before it forms. It turns compassion into foresight. Machiavelli prized foresight above all virtues, calling it the essence of wisdom. The shadow and the light. Every person carries a hidden shadow. The instinct society forbids. Machiavelli's realism invites you not to repress that shadow, but to integrate it. He believed virtue without shadow becomes brittle, while shadow without virtue becomes monstrous. Balance makes wholeness. To deny your darker impulses, anger, ambition, pride, is to let them control you unconsciously. To acknowledge them consciously is to channel them. When you accept your capacity for ruthlessness, kindness becomes a choice, not a performance. People feel that. They can sense when your gentleness could turn sharp if required. That awareness creates deep respect. You do not have to use the sword, but you must be seen as one who could. That potential, restrained by conscience, forms the silent contract of reverence. The economy of silence. Silence is not absence. It is storage. Every silence you keep accumulates tension, and tension converts to influence. Machiavelli often paused mid-sentence when speaking to courtiers, letting others fill the gap. They revealed their motives in the silence he created. He called it harvesting words from the air. Try this. In conversation, allow pauses to expand. Observe who rushes to fill them. The one who cannot bear silence often exposes secrets. Meanwhile, your quietness grows denser, more magnetic. Silence also multiplies imagination. When you stop defending, others begin to imagine defenses for you. When you stop clarifying, they invent explanations that often favor you. This is the paradox. Speak less to be understood more. Transmutation of pain. Machiavelli lived through betrayal and exile. He transformed humiliation into authorship, suffering into philosophy. He knew that untransmuted pain becomes resentment, but transmuted pain becomes depth. When you suffer, you stand at a crossroad. Use it or repeat it. To use it, observe it until pattern appears. Ask, what does this reveal about my expectations? The moment insight forms, suffering changes flavor. it becomes instruction. The world respects those who alchemize wounds into wisdom. They radiate credibility that cannot be faked. Their calm feels earned, therefore never hide your scars. Refine them. Let them polish your presence. Machiavelli would call this the dignity of endurance, the subtle art of non-reaction. The highest power lies in choosing when not to respond. Each provocation tests whether you are still enslaved by impulse. To ignore skillfully is different from indifference. It is an active decision to redirect energy. When faced with insult, delay response for 24 hours. Observe how most attacks evaporate without your participation. Each non-reaction is a small victory over ego. The public mind confuses silence with defeat. The wise recognize it as control. You are not obligated to attend every battle to win the war. Non-reaction also disorients aggressors. They thrive on your emotion. Deny it and they collapse. Machiavelli would smile at this modern translation. He who keeps his cool owns the board. Presence is not posture, tone, or charisma. It is the architecture that holds all three. Invisible, but undeniable. Machiavelli understood that the true ruler does not have presence. He is presence. He can enter a room and change its chemistry before speaking. What creates that? Integrity of energy. Every movement, every glance, every word is born from the same root. Purpose. People feel coherent. They trust it even if they cannot name it. To build presence, eliminate contradiction. Do not say what you do not believe. Do not promise what you will not deliver. Do not appear confident while secretly begging for reassurance. Each internal split leaks energy. When you close those leaks, gravity returns. Machiavelli said, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for all can see, but few can feel." He meant that presence is not moral, it is perceptual. The world sees wholeness and calls it power. Presence is not performance, it is alignment. The rhythm of authority is rhythm. Every powerful figure carries a tempo, measured, deliberate, self-defined. When others meet them, they adjust unconsciously. Watch how confident people move. Slower speech, longer pauses, minimal gestures. They are not slow because they lack energy. They are slow because they command it. Speed belongs to servants. Rhythm belongs to kings. Machiavelli noticed that Florence's rulers often lost respect when they began reacting to the rhythm of their enemies. He warned, "He who lets another set the time of battle already yields half the victory." In your life, this means one thing. Never let others dictate your pace. If they rush, slow down. If they delay, stay steady. Your rhythm is your border. The moment you move to please another tempo, you become part of their story, not yours. Maintain internal timing. The world will synchronize to you. Eventually, inevitably. The alchemy of confidence. Confidence is not belief. It is memory. It is the body recalling how many times you survived doubt. Machiavelli viewed confidence as cultivated evidence. He saw that self-assurance born from fantasy collapses under pressure, but confidence built through practice becomes unbreakable. He wrote, "Fortune favors the bold, not because boldness is divine, but because boldness is experience repeating itself through faith." To build that kind of confidence, act before you feel ready. Do small, courageous things daily. Speak once without approval, walk into rooms that intimidate you. Tell truth softly where silence once ruled. Each act becomes a stone in your invisible fortress. True confidence is not loud. It is peaceful. It carries no need to impress. It simply knows. And when people sense that knowing, they reorganize around it. Confidence is silent certainty, and silent certainty is respect made visible. The law of reciprocity. Machiavelli taught that generosity is a tool of power when given consciously. He warned that indiscriminate giving breeds contempt. To give meaningfully, one must calculate timing, scale, and motive. When you offer something, advice, time, emotion, make it deliberate. Give not to be liked, but to create balance. Give when it uplifts both giver and receiver. If it drains you, it is not generosity. It is leakage. He wrote that wise princes bestow favors little by little, so that they may be tasted the more. Modern translation: divide your kindness into moments rather than floods. Scarcity keeps appreciation alive. Reciprocity does not mean transaction. It means symmetry. The relationship where both feel valued lasts. The one where giving is used to purchase validation dies. Every gesture should carry both grace and measure. That balance turns generosity into prestige. The discipline of adaptation. Machiavelli's favorite goddess was Fortuna, the embodiment of chaos, luck, and change. He believes she tests every human being by shifting circumstances faster than their habits. The unarmed man, he wrote, is destroyed by fortune because he cannot bend. Adaptation is strength disguised as humility. It means you evolve faster than circumstance. Those who cling to one identity perish when the season changes. Those who reinvent without betraying essence thrive. A tree that refuses wind breaks. A tree that sways endures. Respect grows from those who can adjust without apology. In conversation, in failure, in new environments, stay fluid. Rigid power provokes rebellion. Adaptive power inspires trust. To adapt is not to yield, it is to recalibrate. You change form to remain essence. That flexibility, Machiavelli understood, is the ultimate elegance. The purity of intent is invisible, but the body betrays it. People feel when you want something from them. Desire leaks through tone, eyes, and timing. Machiavelli noted that manipulation fails not because of strategy, but because of impurity of motive. To be respected, your intention must be clean. Even if others disagree, they must feel truth. Truth does not mean full honesty. It means energetic coherence. When what you want aligns with what you say, communication becomes transparent without confession. Before any interaction, ask, why do I want this? If the answer contains vanity or fear, wait. If it contains clarity or service, proceed. Purity of intention removes resistance. It replaces persuasion with gravity, and gravity is the highest form of influence. The quiet currency of consistency. Machiavelli saw that human beings fear unpredictability more than evil. They can adapt to cruelty but not to chaos. Therefore, the most respected individuals are not the nicest. They are the most consistent. When your reactions are stable, people relax. When your standards are steady, they rise to meet them. Consistency converts doubt into faith. This applies to every domain: your promises, your moods, your habits. Do what you say when you said how you said. And if you cannot, explain before being asked. That tiny discipline builds monumental authority. Over time, the consistent person becomes mythic. Their yes means destiny, their no means wool. Machiavelli would call this reliability as rain. Because order, even small order, is worshipped in a world addicted to disorder. The shadow of legacy respect seeks permanence. Legacy is permanence achieved. Machiavelli wrote the prince not to be loved, but to outlive oblivion. And he did. Centuries later, his name still stirs debate, fear, admiration. Legacy is not ego. It is leaving a trail of clarity so others may walk steadier paths. To build it, act as if every choice will echo beyond your lifetime. Speak words you'd want carved in time. Write, create, build, teach. Not for applause, but for transmission. Let your existence become an archetype of courage, lucidity, and restraint. Legacy begins when you realize the present is already history being written. Every decision is a brushstroke on eternity, on forgiveness and forgetting. Machiavelli rarely used the word forgiveness. He preferred resolution. He knew that clinging to resentment wastes attention, and attention is power. To forgive is not to approve. It is to release the claim that the past owes you repair. When you stop expecting justice from those incapable of giving it, you regain energy. Forgetting, however, is optional. Keep memory without venom. Let it inform boundaries, not identities. He would say, a wise man pardons but never trusts twice without proof. That equilibrium transforms pain into information. Forgiveness without learning is repetition. Learning without bitterness is mastery. The final paradox. Strength is tenderness. Without fear, after all his analyses of power, Machiavelli returned, in his private letters, to something unexpected: tenderness. He confessed that even the most cunning ruler must know moments of stillness, laughter, affection, or else his mind decays. True strength, he realized, is not the absence of tenderness, but the absence of fear of tenderness. When you can open your heart without losing your ground, you reach equilibrium. Tenderness becomes noble when it no longer seeks return. It flows naturally, without demand. People sense that purity. It softens their defenses, without costing you respect. A man or woman who can hold power and gentleness together commands a form of reverence that surpasses love or fear. It inspires devotion. That was Machiavelli's final secret. Power and compassion are not opposites. They are two wings of the same being. The closing vision. Imagine standing at the center of your life like a silent fortress, calm amidst noise, generous yet firm, mysterious yet sincere. You no longer chase respect. It breathes through you. People speak differently in your presence. They measure words, adjust tone, recalibrate posture. not out of fear, but out of instinctive recognition that something sovereign stands before them. You will notice small miracles, arguments ending without effort, opportunities appearing without chase, loyalty arriving without demand, because respect, once internalized, becomes atmospheric. Machiavelli's wisdom was never about cruelty. It was about clarity. He wanted humanity to see itself naked, to shed illusions of purity, and to rise with eyes open. He showed that goodness without strength is decoration, and strength without conscience is ruin. But together, clarity and conscience, they form the architecture of true power. Now you have walked through centuries of thought into the chambers of perception, fear, and silence. What remains is practice, to live these truths quietly until they become nature. When you wake tomorrow, remember one sentence, not as a quote, but as a mirror. I am not here to be liked. I am here to be remembered with respect. Let that phrase breathe through every gesture. Let it refine how you stand, how you speak, how you disappear. Because those who master silence master time. And those who master respect never need to raise their voice again. Now that you've walked through the dark corridors of Machiavelli's philosophy, the question becomes simple. How do you live it? How do you transform insight into atmosphere so that respect is no longer something you ask for, but something that forms around you like air? It begins with the smallest disciplines, not grand gestures of authority, but quiet habits that build invisible structure. 1. Morning. Centering. When you wake, resist the impulse to reach for your phone, for news, for distraction. Stand, breathe deeply through your nose and remind yourself, I set the rhythm of this day. 3 slow breaths. On the first, you exhale yesterday's noise. On the second, you inhale composure. On the third, you anchor intention. I move in silence and respect follows. That single ritual calibrates your nervous system before the world can claim it. Machiavelli would have called this the prince's private council, the meeting with one's own mind before facing the court of the world. 2. The rule of measured speech. Throughout the day, speak 30% less than you normally would. Each time you feel the urge to fill silence, observe it. Ask, is this to add value or to soothe insecurity? When it is the second, stay silent. You'll notice people leaning closer, voices softening, attention shifting toward you. Scarcity multiplies value. Make your words an event. Posture and pace. Walk slower. Move deliberately. Do not hurry even when time is short. The body teaches the mind. When others sense that nothing can rush you, they assume you know something they do not. That assumption becomes authority. At meetings, sit back before speaking. Rest hands lightly, shoulders open. Presence is geometry. Your calmness will reorganize the room without command. 4. The boundary ritual. Choose one small area of your life where you habitually overgive, perhaps replying instantly to messages, saying yes to requests you resent, tolerating gossip. For 7 days, reverse that reflex. Pause before answering. Say no once a day, kindly but firmly. Notice the silence that follows. That silence is the birth of respect. It will feel uncomfortable at first, then liberating. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must be both loved and feared, but that fear without hatred is achieved through consistency of boundary. Your modern version is clarity without apology. The mirror. Fast. Once a week, spend one evening offline. No social media, no mirrors, no camera. Sit with yourself without performance. Ask, who am I when no one sees me? This practice rebuilds inner authority by detaching identity from approval. It trains the muscle that Machiavelli valued most, self-definition. Strategic absence. Withdraw before fatigue, not after. When conversation begins to drift, end it graciously. When your presence becomes assumed, disappear briefly. Absence resets perception faster than argument. It teaches others to cherish your reappearance. Use it in friendships, in digital life, even in creativity. The rhythm of presence and absence sustains respect more surely than any speech. Emotional transmutation. Each night, recall one irritation from the day. Do not analyze the person. Analyze the trigger. Write one sentence beginning with, this shows me that I still need approval or still fear rejection. Seeing the pattern turns anger into data. Tomorrow you will respond differently, not softer but smarter. That is how pain becomes strategy. The economy of favors, help selectively. Before saying yes, ask, will this strengthen or drain both of us? When you help from strength, you build loyalty. When you help from guilt, you build resentment. Keep track of energy as you would currency. Respect grows where generosity feels earned, not obligatory. Evening audit before sleep, replay the day as Machiavelli would study a battlefield. Where did you speak too quickly? Where did you surrender? Pace? Where did silence serve you? Note these without judgment. The point is not perfection but awareness. Awareness repeated becomes instinct, and instinct repeated becomes aura. The art of rest. Rest is not laziness. It is recalibration. A tired mind loses discipline and leaks respect. Sleep, solitude, and stillness are the throne's maintenance. Take 1 hour daily without noise. Walk, read, breathe. That hour refuels the gravity that makes others slow down around you. Living the philosophy. Within weeks of practicing these rituals, subtle changes appear. People interrupt you less. They explain themselves more. Opportunities reach out quietly. Your silence becomes language. Your refusal becomes signal. You will also lose certain company, the ones who fed on your compliance. Let them go. Their departure marks the clearing of your field. Do not mistake loneliness for loss. It is space returning to you. That space is the kingdom Machiavelli spoke of, the internal state where power requires no witnesses, translating respect into compassion. Power without heart rots. Heart without structure dissolves. Therefore, blend firmness with grace. When you correct, do it once calmly. When you forgive, do it fully, then detach. When you praise, mean it. Respect nourishes others when it carries warmth. Machiavelli hinted at this balance in his later letters. A prince must be both fox and lion, but he must remember he is still human. To be fully human is to lead energy, not crush it. The moment of reflection. Pause. Now, look inward. Ask yourself, where in my life do I still trade authenticity for approval? Write the first answer that appears. That is your doorway. Step through it tomorrow. Every transformation begins in awareness and ends in repetition. Repeat these small disciplines until they disappear into your nature. When they do, respect will no longer be something you manage. It will be something you emit. Final words. Do not chase admiration. Become admirable. Do not beg to be understood. Become unmistakable. Do not ask for respect. Stand where respect has no choice but to exist. Machiavelli's wisdom lives not in manipulation but in mastery of thought, emotion, timing, and silence. When you embody that mastery, you join the rare few who move through the world as forces, not figures. Tomorrow morning, when you wake, whisper the sentence that seals this transformation. I choose respect over approval. Say it once, then live so quietly and so clearly that the world repeats it for you. There comes a moment in every life when the mask of goodness begins to suffocate, when the endless effort to be liked feels like carrying a mirror that always faces outward. You wake one day and realize that you have lived not as yourself but as an echo of what others needed you to be. That realization is the beginning of freedom and the beginning of solitude. Machiavelli understood this crossroads better than any other thinker. He saw that the path of respect is a lonely ascent because it requires walking away from applause. You cannot climb while still turning to see if the crowd approves. Respect is built on elevation, and elevation demands distance. So you begin to withdraw, not from humanity, but from dependency. Your movements grow quieter. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing. You stop performing. And suddenly the noise that once surrounded you fades into something different. Silence. At first that silence feels frightening, like exile. Then you realize, it is not emptiness. It is space. Space for thought, for observation, for self. That is when the transformation begins. Respect is not gained through dominance, but through density. The more inner space you hold, the more the world bends around it. You become the calm at the center of storms. The power that once existed only in others' eyes returns to your spine. The first revelation. You never needed them to approve. Your approval was the drug, but the high was illusion. Every compliment you chased evaporated the moment it touched air. Every nod of acceptance chained you to new expectations. You were addicted not to love, but to permission. Machiavelli's wisdom strips that addiction naked. He shows you that the same world that demanded you be gentle will admire you only when you stop obeying. The crowd that mocked your boundaries will call you inspiring once you enforce them. The moment you cease needing to be liked, their respect begins. Not because they changed, but because you did. You see it everywhere. In conversation, you listen more and talk less. In conflict, you hold eye contact without anger. When provoked, you answer slowly or not at all. Your calmness becomes unsettling to those who once controlled you. They mistake it for arrogance, but it is simply self-possession. And then something subtle happens. The very people who once dismissed you begin to seek your presence again. They ask for your opinion, your help, your guidance. Because in a world of noise, the silent become magnetic. The second revelation. Power is a mirror. Not a weapon. Machiavelli's critics saw only manipulation. They missed the mirror. His writings do not create darkness. They reveal it. They remind you that human beings respond not to ideals but to reflections. People give back the energy they receive. If you project chaos, they return confusion. If you project discipline, they return respect. Therefore, your task is not to dominate, but to refine your reflection. Stand upright even when no one watches. Speak as if your words will echo for a century. Look people in the eye not to intimidate, but to affirm that you see them clearly. Power then becomes quiet reciprocity. The world begins to mirror your steadiness. When Machiavelli wrote that men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand, he was warning you. People see before they feel. They read your posture before they hear your philosophy. They sense your self-trust before you speak a sentence. Respect is perception disciplined by consistency. The third revelation. The cost of sovereignty. To be sovereign is not to rule others. It is to rule yourself. But that rule has a price. You will lose comfort because comfort depends on predictability. You will lose certain friendships because they were built on compliance. You will lose belonging to any one group because your truth will outgrow tribes. Machiavelli paid that price. He was exiled, accused of deceit, misunderstood by generations. Yet even in exile, his name gained immortality. He proved that exile from approval is entry into legacy. You must decide whether to be temporarily liked or eternally respected. Popularity fades faster than courage. Courage survives in silence, carved into the bones of time. The fourth revelation. Fear, when purified, becomes clarity. Fear is the oldest human instinct. It has protected tribes, built cities, written laws. But modern fear is rarely survival. It is reputation. We fear not death but disapproval. We fear being judged, ignored, excluded. Machiavelli offers an antidote. Replace fear of opinion with fear of mediocrity. Be terrified not of rejection but of never discovering your true power. Let that holy fear burn away vanity. What remains is clarity. When fear becomes clarity, you stop running from the unknown. You walk into it with eyes open. You accept that some will hate you, that others will misunderstand you, that few will applaud you. But you also discover that nothing essential can be taken from you. The world can remove titles, jobs, relationships, but it cannot remove self-command. And self-command is the only crown worth wearing. The fifth revelation, influence begins where explanation ends. Machiavelli's rulers understood the rhythm of mystery. They knew that words convince minds, but silence converts souls. They left space for others to interpret. They mastered ambiguity not to deceive, but to invite imagination. You can do the same. In every conversation, practice ending one sentence sooner than expected. Let silence complete the meaning. You will notice that people project their own depth into the pause. They call you wise because you made them listen to themselves. This is the quiet art of influence, to become the mirror in which others glimpse their higher self. You guide not by pushing but by stillness. You lead not by command but by example. The sixth revelation, strength is not in resistance but in redirection. Machiavelli wrote that fortune is like a river. It floods. It destroys, but it can be redirected by those who build channels before the storm. That lesson applies to emotion, to failure, to power. You cannot stop life's current, but you can sculpt it. You cannot prevent betrayal, but you can turn it into wisdom. You cannot control perception, but you can design it. Resistance wastes energy. Redirection multiplies it. So when confronted with opposition, ask not, how do I stop this? But how can I shape it? If they gossip, let their words advertise your name. If they doubt you, let their doubt become your discipline. If they abandon you, let their absence highlight your independence. Everything thrown at you can be converted into influence. That is Machiavellian alchemy, the art of turning chaos into currency. The seventh revelation: legacy is built, one decision at a time. Every choice either strengthens your aura or dilutes it. Every reaction either confirms or contradicts your philosophy. Machiavelli knew that the smallest gesture, a glance, a delay, a word withheld, could shape destinies. Therefore, begin where you stand. You don't need a throne to act like a ruler. Every space you enter becomes a micro-kingdom governed by your energy. Speak truth in small rooms before you dream of great ones. Keep promises even when no one will notice. Show restraint in private, and the world will feel it in public. Greatness is not an explosion. It is accumulation. Respect builds molecule by molecule until it becomes atmosphere. And one day, without announcement, you will wake to find that people now treat your silence as prophecy. When all the lessons have settled and the noise of ambition fades, there remains one last question. What kind of presence will you leave behind? The world will forget your titles, your opinions, even your victories, but it will remember how it felt in your presence. Whether it expanded or shrank, whether it sensed chaos or calm, respect is the echo you leave in other nervous systems. It is the quiet after you speak, the thought that lingers when you walk away. Machiavelli's name survived not because he ruled a city, but because he ruled an idea that truth, however severe, is more useful than illusion. He became immortal by describing reality as it is, not as comfort wishes it to be. That is the task before you now. See clearly, act precisely. Leave behind the fragrance of coherence in a world drunk on confusion. The circle of power begins with awareness, ripples outward through discipline, and returns as legacy. Everything you send into the world comes back altered by perception. If you project desperation, it returns as pity. If you project balance, it returns as reverence. Each act is a circle that eventually closes at your feet. Therefore, before you move, measure intention. Before you speak, measure tone. Before you decide, measure alignment. When your circles close cleanly, life becomes geometry instead of accident. This is what Machiavelli called virtù, the skill of shaping fortune through mastery of self. The test of solitude, every sovereign endures the same test. Can you remain whole when unseen? When applause ceases, when the phone is silent, when the world offers no validation, will your spine still hold? Sit in that silence and you will meet the real source of respect, your own reflection. If you can look at it without flinching, you are free. If you cannot, no amount of admiration will rescue you. Machiavelli's exile gave him this revelation. He lost everything external, status, safety, favor, but discovered the internal kingdom that no enemy could conquer. He called it a conversation with my soul. Have yours daily, the art of ending. There is nobility in knowing when to conclude. The wise end before decay, the proud after. Ending gracefully is the final demonstration of respect for yourself and for those who watched. So end your explanations, end your performances, end the cycle of overgiving, end the chapters that no longer expand you. Every ending dignified becomes a beginning purified. Machiavelli would say, depart before the applause. It is the only way to keep its echo. Transcendence of duality, love and fear, light and shadow, virtue and cunning, these are not opposites to be chosen. They are poles to be harmonized. The mature soul moves between them like breath. Inhale gentleness, exhale power. To live only in light is to be naive. To live only in darkness is to be lost. Balance them and you become untouchable. The final evolution of respect is serenity. When your strength no longer needs display, when your kindness no longer needs permission, you have reached mastery. Nothing external can add or subtract from you. People feel that completeness and call it mystery. It is simply wholeness. Epilogue. The quiet revolution, imagine. If even a few people lived this way, without the hunger to be liked, without the noise of self-advertisement, without the tremor of seeking approval, the world would change shape, workplaces would calm, relationships would deepen, leaders would listen before they speak, and silence, once feared, would become sacred again. Your life can be that revolution. You need no throne, no followers, no crown. You need only to embody coherence so completely that it reforms the space around you. Every time you walk into a room carrying stillness instead of need, you rewrite the social contract. Every time you refuse to gossip, the frequency of the world rises slightly. Every time you say no without anger, you teach others that boundaries are holy. Respect is contagious. Your transformation becomes invisible instruction for those who still chase applause. The final image. See yourself now, standing alone in the quiet corridor of the world, dawn light on the floor. No crowd, no judgment, only the hum of your own breath. You are neither saint nor tyrant, just awake. You understand at last what Machiavelli meant, that power is not about conquest. It is about composure. You lift your head and the air itself seems to slow. Somewhere unseen, people adjust their tone, their posture, their pace without knowing why. They have entered your field. You do nothing. You simply are. That is respect. That is freedom. Now say it one final time, softly as a promise to yourself. I do not need to be liked. I choose to be respected. And as those words settle, let silence close behind them like a door. Because the greatest sound of power is peace.